Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Tell My Story podcast. So, I said to you guys after the last episode that I would be starting to share your stories. So, this is going to be the first episode of the first story. So, this episode is for Ray, and this is Ray's story. And I'm just going to crack straight into it. I am going to be reading it off my phone. I don't need to keep repeating myself, but you guys know what I'm like. My memory is terrible. I wish I could remember your stories like vividly in my head so I could read it out, but I just can't. So here we go. I will get the hang of it after a while, getting some like proper vivid memory, but right now that's just not possible. So let's get around to it. Here's Tell My Story podcast. It's not going great, is it, guys? Tell My Story podcast, and this is Ray's story. She used to think every family lived like this. The child that grew up flinching at footsteps, that every house felt cold, tense, and impossible to relax in. And this was due to the abuse from her biological father. He would control everything: locks on cupboards, locks on food, locks on doors. My biological dad controlled everything: family, friends, food. The whole house revolved around his moods. His moods became dangerous. He would beat my brothers and accidentally hurt me when play fighting. He drank heavily. He manipulated everybody around him. He controlled my mother financially until she was bankrupt. And if we weren't getting abused, he'd be ignoring us, not coming to the hospital to see me when I was having asthma attacks, and more. Even our family dog wasn't safe from his rage. He beat and kicked the dog so badly that one day it suffered a brain injury. Instead of helping it, he took it to his friends and shot it. If that doesn't tell you what type of person he is, I don't know what will. That memory never left me. Neither did the sounds of my mother crying because he cheated on her with her best friend. He then moved in with her instead. Weekends still happened because my mother wasn't bitter, but those weekends became something I dreaded. When we went to stay with him on weekends, it included more play fighting. Me having to wipe feces with my own hands because he wouldn't let me use toilet paper. He forced me to eat, and if I didn't, I wouldn't get anything else for the rest of the day. Selling and destroying my belongings in front of me and watched me cry with no remorse. One afternoon, after another argument, I called my mum on the emergency phone that she'd given me. I accidentally dropped it on the driveway, and I bent over to pick it up, and I heard a car engine. He had seen me. At first, he drove slowly towards me, and then suddenly he sped up. I didn't have much time to move out of his way. After that came the reckless driving. He would force 6-year-old me to drive the car from the passenger seat while he shouted at me to change gears. No child seat, no booster seat, just fear. His wife wasn't any kinder to me. She used to taunt me, shout at me, forced him to choose between me and her. He chose her, to the point where she made me bathe in dirty bath water, despite me having a skin condition. They exposed me to sexual behaviour far too young, using me as a messenger between two adults who quite clearly hated one another. So sorry. This is the first part of my story. Ray has now got a developmental delay due to a trauma they experienced as a child. They've done their best to explain most of what happened in their early years. From the second part of Ray's story goes to explain how their childhood trauma affected their everyday life, relationships, and further abuse in their adult life. Ray had such a horrendous childhood with her family, and we would all hope that there wasn't any more, but we were wrong. Abuse followed Ray. The first instance of abuse wasn't parental. These were twins from high school. I was only 7 or 8 years old. They stole my toys, my lunch money, and bullied me relentlessly. One day, while playing hide and seek, they pinned me down in a narrow corridor between the front door and the house. Hands touching me, their bodies pressed against mine. They threatened me with a camera, saying if I told anyone, everybody would know and I'd be in trouble. I now know it was just a lie, but that shows how innocent I was. Regardless of what I'd been through, I stayed pure to myself until more abuse continued. At 10 years old, another boy came along. We went to children's clubs together a few times a week. Tennis, activities, normal things. Afterwards, we went back to his house and he would rape me. I thought it was normal. I now know it's not, but I was so used to sexual abuse, I let it happen. One day I found out how wrong it was and reported it to the police. The school didn't bat an eyelid because we were in a special needs school and he didn't know any better. Then followed a short relationship of 3 months with a guy called Kieran. He used to bite me, hit me, and blame it on being a vampire. And next, it was a ghoul. This is when things took a turn for the worst. From the ages of 14 to 18, I was in an on and off relationship with a guy called Aidan. He was what I saw as normal, considering I'd seen everything but the sad thing, his family wasn't. I was stalked, harassed, and bullied by adults. At 15, I fell pregnant. Unfortunately, miscarried due to stress, and Aidan striking me in the stomach multiple times. I remember my mum picking me up and asking me, "Are you sure you're not having a miscarriage?" She didn't know I was pregnant. I wish I told her. When I was 16, they made me write an apology letter to Aidan and the family for trying to take my life. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying so hard to smash through this, but it being like the first story since I've come on the podcast, I'm trying so hard to stay strong for you guys and for Ray for me to tell this story, and it is absolutely beating me up. I'm so sorry, Ray, that you have gone through this. I am so, so, so sorry. I am so sorry. So, so sorry. I'll start that bit again. I'm so sorry. When I was 16, they made me write an apology letter to Aidan and his family for trying to take my life. His sister threatened to call social services and act as an adult at 16. This triggered Aidan into running away, and as I said, for him to come back to mine. Instead, he was refusing to go back there. Still at the age of 16, I woke up to Aidan raping me in my sleep. I stayed with him. So sorry. I stayed with him. I don't know why. I guess I loved him, or what I thought was love. At 17, his stepdad came to my house where I was living with my mother and stepfather. He was shouting in my face, belittling me while being extremely aggressive. He got so aggressive my stepdad had to physically push him out of the house and lock the door. During an on and off relationship with Aidan, there were periods Ray was single. They were exploring being young and having fun. But for Ray, they unfortunately ended up being abused, just in a different format. Let's rewind to the ages 14 turning 15. Me and Aidan had broken up and had met someone online called Nick. It was nice to start talking to someone until he became controlling, even through the computer. I wish I could block back then. He was grooming me, controlling what I wore, who I spoke to. If I went against him, he'd threaten suicide. He'd always tell me he'd do something to himself. On my 15th birthday, he faked suicide. That was the end of that for me. At 15, I was still single. I was groomed by a bloke at my school, Josh. He would sneak around and meet me, text me secretly, and made me wear a skirt I really hated to wear. This will be an important thing later. You are a child. He would threaten to rape me, telling me to meet him in quiet places and go to his house. He lived with his grandparents and lied to my parents about where I was. One day I wore the skirt he made me wear in school, the one she hated. We could choose our last class, so I chose Russian. The day I wore the skirt, he groped me under the table and sexually assaulted me in the classroom. Soon after that, I never saw him again. Turns out he went to prison for rape on somebody else. Poor girl, but I'm not surprised. I believe he would have done that to me too if he got the opportunity. I was still on and off with Aidan and started seeing a guy called Paul. He manipulated me into sending him a nude of myself. So I did. Soon after, there was a fair on. There were rides and games there. Before we went, he was at my house and we were in my room. He pinned me to the bed and tried to rape me. Luckily, my parents shouted for me. They were out but came in just in time. That gave me an opportunity to go downstairs and head to the fair. On that way, he groped me too. I cut the relationship off, but it was too late. Not only did he tell everybody in my class I was a slut because I sent him a nude, he sent it to his friend William, who knew who I was, where my class was, what college I went to, what building and what time. He threatened to gang rape me until I dropped dead. I went to the police, and what a surprise, they couldn't help me. William had fled the UK and couldn't be tracked, so just another mental scar. I could have done something about Paul, but instead police threatened me with, if it was a few months earlier, you'd be in prison. We were both 16, but he turned 16 a few months before me. My mental health took the biggest hit. COVID hit and I dropped out of college and school due to fear. I was put into a psych ward for my own safety and I was a suicide risk. And that's what put me there, another attempt on my life. Unfortunately, that wasn't the only one, and it flared up my illnesses, making them worse to this day, and I'm still disabled. I'm still terrified to leave my house. I live a 5-minute walk from my rapist's house and his abusive family, and my partner's parents live on the same block as Josh. I can't go out by myself. For 3 consecutive years, I didn't go out besides therapy. I could still feel their hands on my body. Sorry. And I blame myself, which my therapist told me is a common feeling to have. Aidan and Josh know I went to the police about them. I went years later when I felt stronger to do so. Police wouldn't help me due to a lack of evidence and statement reports. I am Ray, and that's my story. I have a good family, a stable relationship, and good friends, but I'm traumatized from my past and I don't know if I will ever heal. I think it's so hard for me because I relate so much to so many different things that people go through. And especially at those ages. But Ray was a child. And at those ages, when you go through something as horrific as that, you lose your innocence. And it's hard to lose your innocence as a child and then grow up in the way society believes you should. And I think family abuse is so not talked about. I went through a lot as a kid, physical abuse, like different things as a kid. And that's stuff you can't really get past. It manipulates your brain into who you become as an adult. I'm so sorry. And the fact that Ray has now got to deal with, chronic illnesses, disabilities, on top of mental illnesses, you know, trauma. I can't explain how sorry I am to Ray that they went through this. And I can just say I am so proud that they are here today, that they are strong, that they are happy and in a stable position in their lives. And I truly wish them all the love in the entire world. I really, really do. I think that's so hard to talk about. So hard to talk about. And I think, especially talking about, the father, I think that's one of the hardest things to talk about. Even when you go talk about abuse and, DV and stuff like that, talking about your family, your relatives, that is so difficult. And kudos to Ray for being strong enough to do that, because that was hard, really, really hard for me to read. Really hard. And it will be really hard for you guys to listen to, I'm sure. So for Ray to deal with that on a day-to-day basis, with being in their heads, is, yeah, I just wanted to say to you directly, Ray, you should be so incredibly proud of yourself. Not only for one, surviving that, two, becoming the person that you are today, because I've spoken to you quite a fair few times, and you are a beautiful person inside and out. And I hope you know that. I hope you know that. I hope you know that this stuff doesn't define you, but it made you. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but it did. And all you have done is turned that evil trauma into you, into beauty, into kindness, because you are so beautifully kind. And to go through all of that horrificness and be as kind as you are, you must be a warrior. So I truly thank you so much for being so brave and giving me the pleasure and the opportunity to read your story and be a part of it. You are incredible and so brave. And just honestly give yourself a big cuddle, because you really, really deserve it. Really deserve it. Um, Thank you guys so much for coming to this episode. I would so much love to sit here and talk with you guys. That just hurt me in ways I can't actually describe. People don't really talk about family abuse a lot. It's unheard of. It's not. People just don't talk about it. And to hear it, to read it, to know that somebody else was abused by the very person that created them is terrifying. That is terrifying. And I think with the amount of sexual assault that Ray has endured, for them to be healed enough to be in a loving, happy relationship where they are understood, respected, has to be some type of wizardry power for them to be that brave and strong enough to do that. And I need to take some lessons off you, Ray, because you show strength that I don't think I could ever have. I see your videos and how you fight your chronic illnesses and your disabilities, and how hard of a time that you do have, and you make a life out of it. That doesn't stop you. Doesn't stop your traveling, and you living your life to the absolute fullest. And I'm so proud of you. So proud of you. So proud of how far you've come. So proud of you writing this out. So proud of you for letting me do this. So thank you so much. This is the end of Ray's story. This is the end of the episode. And I will see you guys on the next one. Take care of yourselves and be safe. Bye.